the issues which you have not you might have gone through, but you have not understood. Okay, so if you have not understood the issues, what we have discussed last Saturday, you can please raise that issue. All right, so in the last discussion, whatever the discussion we had, if you are not able to understand any topic or any issue, you can please raise. We will first discuss the issue that you have not understood, or if you have any question with regard to that, and then we will proceed to discuss today's discussion. All right, so do you have any issue with respect to the last discussion? Anyone? I I expect Chunes. Do you have any issue with respect to, because I believe you had, if you have any issue, I believe we were discussing on some issues. Chunes, I hope you have understood the issues. All right, no issue with that. Now let us discuss about today's topic. I believe everybody, has forgotten the topics. So let us discuss about today's topic. Now, the first topic that I have selected for today's discussion is the POCSO Act. Okay. Recently, the Supreme Court has given a verdict about the meaning of the or interpretation of the POCSO Act. So we will discuss very briefly about the POCSO Act, and also discuss how the interpretation has been made by the Supreme Court. All right. Now, due to unavailability of the writing pen, so what I would do today, I will not be able to write, but I will again try to explain as much as you want. All right. So I understand that there is a limitation, but then I lost the pen, so therefore it is somewhat difficult for me. Okay, I can understand, but anyway, let us discuss about today's topic. So the first issue is POCSO Act, and what is the Supreme Court's interpretation in this regard. So we will look at this. So what happened? The news was about that recently the Supreme Court caused a Bombay High Court's decision. Under that decision, the Bombay High Court had acquitted a man charged with assault under the POCSO. Okay, so it was solely on the grounds that he groped the child over her clothes without skin to skin contact. So this is where it is important. Now, what Supreme Court has said, that it has admitted that the POCSO has, even the POCSO Act and other acts, IPCA has not covered the things which are required. All right. So that is the limitation. That is the limitation. Now, in this context, what we will try to understand, what is POCSO Act. Okay, so POCSO basically means the protection of children from sexual offenses. So the full form of the POCSO is protection of children from sexual offenses, and this act was enacted by Parliament in 2012, and the objective was to protect the children from the sexual assault. So it basically defines the children below the age of 18 years. So this is the again, you see the different interpretation. First of all, not every act has a similar definition of children, that you need to understand. So in the POCSO Act, the children has been defined below the age of 18 years. So this act covers the person till 18 years. All right. This act was, of course, it was enacted on the ground that India ratified the UN Convention on the Rights of the Children. Okay, it was ratified in India in 1992, and therefore it requires the sexual exploitation and sexual abuse, like crimes, should be addressed by the law of the land. And in order to give implementation of that, this is what the government of India did. The government of India passed the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act, and it covers a lot of sexual assault against the children. Now, we will try to understand what are the provisions made with respect to the sexual assault in the POXO Act and IPC, because as you see that UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, this act requires every ratified country to pass a legislation to give effect the to give effect its convention. All right. In order to give effect the convention, it has definitely taken up the issues. But prior to this, also prior to the POXO Act, the IPC Act also also covers uh, some of the crimes against the children. Okay, so we will try to understand that what are the legislation which covers the children act. Let me tell you, this kind of questions are asked in social issues in paper, in general studies paper 2. All right, so as part of the paper 2, this kind of questions you can expect in the examination, and it has already been asked about the POXO Act. So therefore, you need to understand that child sexual assault are covered under which of the acts. All right. So in prelims example and mains example, you can expect the same kind of question. So what it says, so under the IPC, the definition of assault or criminal force to a woman with intent to outrage her modesty is very generic, not specific. It has been taken. It has been taken in generic, and this is the reason why the POXO Act has come into play, and the POXO Act was required to be passed in the Parliament. So the what the POXO Act suggests, it you know this explicitly mentions some of the features of the sexual assault, such as touching the various parts and touching in a way which involves the physical contact with the person. All right, so if you have a physical contact with the person, or in a way if you are doing some activities which are affecting the modesty of women, that would be covered under the POXO Act, and as you see, that has been covered under POXO Act. However, the IPC has not specifically defined that what kind of act will come under the definition of assault. So here the assault has been defined specifically when it comes to the physical contact. So once the physical contact happens with the people, and women, in that circumstances it will be covered. All right. uh, uh, so when it comes to the generic definition affecting the modesty of the women, the IPC also provides punishment, and the punishment is that uh, uh, punishment again punishment is mentioned under the section 354 of the IPC, which lays down a minimum 1 year imprisonment. Okay, so if you are outraging the modesty of a woman, so in that circumstances, IPC also covers, but in very generic, not very specific, in the sense that if the physical assault has happened, if the sexual assault has happened, that is not clearly defined in this one. But anyway, it is, if it is affecting the modesty of women, in that circumstances there is a provision of minimum 1 year imprisonment. However, the POXO, which has defined the sexual assault, it has more you know uh, it has clearly mentioned the uh, like what kind of imprisonment will be provided. In that circumstances, section 8 of the act provides minimum imprisonment of 3 years to that particular individual who are engaged in affecting the modesty of women, specifically by way of sexual assault. So understood here the difference. The IPC covers the sexual assault not specifically, but in a general way, where it is saying that the modesty, if you are affecting the modesty of a woman, it will be covered under the IPC. So there is a generic view, but the POXO specifically defines the sexual assault. All right, that is the difference that you can see, and this is the reason why specifically in POXO and the section 8 of the POXO provides minimum imprisonment of 3 years in that circumstances. So this is the difference. This is how the legislation of the country, a law of the land, deal with the particular issue of sexual assault. However, as the Supreme Court has defined that you know even the POXO is not sufficient to meet all the criteria of all the criteria, and it is not able to define everything, and it is not possible. So in that circumstances, what Supreme Court has said, of course, Supreme Court has look at the other look at the other aspects, the intent of the people. So it is trying to fix that intent. If the intent of the people, okay, so if the court had ruled that act of touching the sexual part of the body or any other act involving physical contact, if done with the sexual intent, that would be amount to sexual assault within the meaning of section 7 of the POXO Act. All right, so it has re-established the fact that even if you have if you have done, okay, if you are engaged in physical contact, okay, and if there is an intent of making sexual assault, in that circumstances it will be amount to section 7 of the POXO Act. That has been clearly defined by the Supreme Court. But why the Supreme Court is required to define this one, and this one has a history largely because of its interpretation by the Bombay High Court, and earlier in the earlier judgment as well, such as Nagpur bench judgment and Gadchiroli special court judgment. These two special court judgment, okay, they acquitted people with the in the absence of properly defining the act. Okay, for example, the Nagpur bench judgment of the Bombay High Court has acquitted a man under the POXO Act and held that an act against a minor would amount to groping or sexual assault only if there was a skin to skin contact. Okay, if there is no skin to skin contact, let's say somebody has worn clothes, so there is no skin to skin contact in that circumstances. So what it is saying, that there is no skin to skin contact in the particular case, so therefore the particular individual must be acquitted. That has been defined by the Bombay High Court. Remember, here it is saying about the skin to skin contact. Now what Supreme Court has said, that look, it's not the skin to skin contact. Even if you have tried to touch someone, okay, and there is no skin touch in that circumstances, even if you have done so, and the intent is wrong, that is, the intent is to do sexual assault, in that circumstances it will be amount to sexual assault. But the Nagpur bench judgment earlier defined that there is no skin to skin contact, so therefore it doesn't qualify under the section 7 of the POXO Act, under which it says that there will be the physical assault. Okay, it defines the criteria of physical assault. All right, so the High Court has clearly said, the Bombay High Court had said, mere touching or brushing of a clothed body of a child did not amount to sexual assault. This was something that was defined by the Bombay High Court, and that was challenged in the Supreme Court. Okay, so as I mentioned, so regarding the IPC and POXO Act, what kind of provisions are there? Now, what earlier provision was made by the Gadchiroli Special Court judgment? The special court convicted and sentenced the accused for offenses punishable under the IPC. Okay, but it has again it has taken a very lenient view regarding the definition of sexual. Now, important here is to understand that it is the problem with the POXO Act is that the lack of definition of sexual assault. Okay, the definition clearly says that the sexual assault will require any physical contact. Okay, okay, physical contact, so whether touching or any other things. But the problem here is that the High Court has rightly pointed out, High Court, Bombay High Court has pointed out, there is no skin to skin contact, and that is what it has not been defined by the POXO Act. However, the Supreme Court has given the verdict that it is not about the touching, the physical contact only. It is also about the intent. If somebody is touching, okay, with clothes with the intention of sexual assault, then in that circumstances it will be considered as sexual assault. So therefore, narrow interpretation of the word touch or physical contact or skin to skin contact are not qualified. Okay, so therefore it is not possible for any act to define so much. So therefore, even such situation occurs, if the intent is wrong, in that circumstances it can come under under section 7 of the POXO Act. This is what it was, the issue. And in that context, we need to understand that the law has certain limitation, but again, the narrow definition will affect the entire sentiment of the legislation. Because if you try to give the narrow definition, as it has been trying to do, and it has been done by the Bombay High Court, where it is trying to make difference on the basis of skin to skin contact, in that circumstances it will in fact kill the very basic ethos of the legislation. So therefore, the significance of this judgment is that it protects the modesty of a children. It again bring the new things in the law, where it says the intent is also important. So therefore, it again sets right the misinterpretation of the statute, and underscores that the core ingredient of a sexual offense is sexual intent behind it. Okay, so that is something which is very important in this judgment, and therefore it is able to protect the child's dignity and autonomy, and at the same time it is able to it is in sync with the legislative intent behind the passing of these laws. All right, so this is what the issue of the POXO Act. Now, you can always expect the kind of questions from this one, that you need to understand the POXO Act, the various provisions of the POXO Act. This is important. Another thing that you need to keep in mind, that this can be asked, the kind of sexual assault, the special question can be asked in prelims examination also, where it is said the sexual assault is covered under which of the following acts. Okay, so you can see you can expect question in prelims examination. Similarly, you can expect question with respect to the POXO, since the POXO has come into discussion and in the last 2 years, no question has been asked from the child rights. I expect a kind of question from child rights this year. Okay, because focus has been women. A lot of question has been asked in last 2 years with respect to women, but important issues among the social issues, what the important issues are children, of course, the vulnerable groups and women as well. All right. So a lot of question has been asked from women, but now there may be a question with respect to children or children rights or child issue. All right. So in that context, it might be an important issue for this year's mains examination. All right. Have you understood? Is there anyone who have not understood the issue? You can please tell me if you have not understood, or if you have any question with regard to this, you can please raise your question. Before moving further.
Sir, good evening.
Yes, please.
Sir, Dinesh here.
Yes, Dinesh.
Sir, my doubt is the POCSO Act will be applicable only if there is any sexual intention or physical contact, right?
Okay. Yes.
Or if there is any intention to do sexual assaultation, right, sir?
Yes, intention is important.
So
okay.
what if someone do sexual assaultation by message in the form of messages?
In the form of message, that is also
Yeah.
covered. That is also covered under the POCSO. There are many provisions of the POCSO Act. You need to look at the various other provisions of the POCSO Act as well.
Okay, sir, but it is not mentioned here, sir.
Okay, I have not covered the POCSO Act entirely. I just look at the particular issue. Okay, this is about the sexual assault. This was specifically with regard to the sexual assault. When it comes to the POCSO Act covers this kind of messages also. All right.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So various provisions of the POCSO Act. Here, the question was restricted, discussion was restricted only with the sexual assault definition, because it was given, the interpretation was done by the Supreme Court in that in particular perspective. All right. Okay. Any other? So Rangoli, it has POCSO Act was passed in 2012. As I mentioned, the POCSO Act was passed. It was, there was a lot of issues in that. But you remember one of the issue was Nirvaya, Nirvaya Kand. Okay, so that rape incident occurred in, I believe, in last decade, and that has sensationalized, and also you can say, that has affected the entire community. In that circumstances, the central government also decided to make stringent laws to deal with that kind of deal with the issues of child rights and others. All right. A lot of changes were done during that period of time. Yes. Any other question? All right. Now, let us move on to discuss the next topic. Is it clear to everyone? If it is clear to everyone, only then we will move on to the next topic. So remember, I have not covered the entire POCSO issue. The reason being that I have focused entirely to make you explain that the particular incident and the particular particular verdict which was given by the Supreme Court. All right. Now let us move on to the next issue, and that is, you might have heard about that Prime Minister in his announced yesterday, Prime Minister in his address to the country has announced the repealing of the farm laws. Okay, so the 3 farm laws that were passed in 2020 Okay, so these laws were repealed, and he has announced that these laws will be repealed in the upcoming winter session of the parliament. Okay, and you must have heard about that. Due to these farm laws, there were large scale protests across the country, more specifically in Delhi, from the farmers of Haryana and Punjab. Okay, this might have a political ramification as well, but what is more important that uh, this the government has accepted that it was not able to communicate the benefit of the various farm laws that it has passed. We will try to understand that, we'll look at the various things, that what are the farm laws, and what opportunity in fact India has lost. I would say it's opportunity lost for the country, because we are not able to see the same kind of liberalization that we could have. Okay, like, liberalization of industry happened, and as a result of this, that liberalization happened in 1991, and today you can see the industry has progressed, and not at par with the expectation, but at least you can see that significant growth has happened in the country. Similarly, if the liberalization would have done in agriculture sector, and that is required at this point of time, so if would have done, it would a lot of potential could have been created in agriculture sector as well as in the economy. Okay, now the reason why agriculture has failed to make an impact in the economy is largely that agriculture sector has not seen investment, and the investment in, whether in procurement, investment in terms of technology, investment in machineries, investment in others. Why government is also not making investment in agriculture sector? The reason is that agriculture is not giving any sort of return to the government. In that circumstances, the investors, whether it is a government or anyone, it's not coming. So we must realize that it is opportunity which we have lost. But of course, we have to take into account that at the same time, we need to better, communicate whatever our intention is. So if the government of India has a clear intention, it must have communicated well to the public. It must have educated to the farmer regarding the various benefits, which Prime Minister has rightly acknowledged that it failed to communicate to the people regarding the benefits of the farmers. We will try to understand the what benefits we have lost, what are the opportunities that we could have get through the various farm laws. Okay, so in the backdrop of this, let us discuss about the various farm laws. Okay, as I said, the Prime Minister announced that the three continuous farm laws which were enacted by Parliament in September 2020 will be repealed. All right, so now let us try to understand the provisions. Okay, let us, we have already seen, but we'll try to go back and try to understand what are the various provisions made under these three farm laws. So there are three farm laws. One is the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Act 2020. The second act was the Farmers Empowerment and Production Agreement of Price Assurance and Farm Services Act 2020. And third one was the Essential Commodities Amendment Act 2020. Now let us discuss about the features of this particular act. Even though it has been repealed, but we should try to keep in mind that what were the objectives of these acts in future. If we look at the development in agriculture sector, if we look at the progress which we should go for in agriculture sector, we should always keep in mind that these are the various provisions we need to implement either today or tomorrow in agriculture sector if we want to grow agriculture sector at par with the industry and services sector. All right, so even though even though government is not able to do so, but the content of these acts are very good, and the content was very good. As it said by the various people, there was no problem with the content of these acts. There was problem with the intent of these acts. So therefore, with respect to the content, we don't have any issue. Let us discuss about, because these can be used as a way forward in the examination. All right. So the first act was the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Act 2020. It was basically allowing trade in agriculture produce outside the existing APMCs. So there are a lot of APMCs, Agriculture Produce Marketing Committee. These mandis are available. Almost you can see these mandis these exist in almost every block, especially if you look at western part of the country. Though in eastern part of the country you won't see the APMCs very frequently at various places, but at least you know these agriculture produce market committees are available where the agriculturist can sell its produce. But the problem is that the APMCs have monopoly when it comes to the selling of the goods in the market. So there's a monopoly of the market. There is a single market where agriculturist can produce and agriculturist can sell their items. All right. So this is what it is trying to do, that it is saying that there must be alternative channels where the farmer can sell its commodities. Okay. So what happens? It is trying to create alternative channel so that they can sell. The farmers must have choice to sell either to APMCs or any other. So they must have a choice. So it will bring the choices before the farmers. That is what it was trying to do. So it was trying to create choice for the farmers so that they can sell or purchase, or the farmers produce can be sold and purchased at alternative places as well. And you remember in the in you know in classes you must have seen that once the choice when once you have a choice, what happens? There is a competition among the various players. So what will happen? Once the choices are introduced in the market, what happens as a result of that? There are you know uh, there are competition among the people, and as a result the farmers can get benefit and farmers can fetch higher prices. All right, this is what it was expected, that what will happen once the choices will be available to the farmers will be able to there will be competition to buy the commodities of the farmers among the various buyers. So therefore the competition can be created, and as a result the farmers will be able to fetch better price for their commodities. So they will be able to realize better price for their commodities. That is what it was expected. Okay. Now right now what is happening, that the farmers can sell only in the APMCs. As a result the monopoly exists in the market. Okay, the farmers have no alternative channel where it can sell. So therefore what happens, the farmers are not able to realize the true price of its commodities. Whatever the price whatever the price given at this level, they get they get the price. All right, and the price is decided by some authority, let's say government, and there is no there is no market forces that can play vital role at this point of time. So what happens, that prices, generally what we have seen, the prices are fixed by the market forces, that is demand and supply. So here yes, of course, when a lot of production happens, in that circumstances it protects the farmers. But on the other hand, you need to remember, when there is a less production, in that circumstances farmers are not able to fetch higher prices for their commodities as well. So there is a risk on the other side. There is of course there is a challenge, as well as the benefits are also not going to the farmers. So that is what we can see. So this act was aimed to provide choices to the farmer so that they can fetch better price for their commodities, and can also get alternative trading channels. So the what will happen as a result of this, it wanted to promote efficient, transport transparent, and barrier free interstate and intra-state trade and commerce of farmers produce. So farmers market is not restricted. It can sell its good in any part of the country. That is what it was visualized under this particular act. So they will have a physical they will have reach outside the physical premises. It also provides a facilitative framework for electronic trading. So as it has been done under enam, this provision was also mentioned under this one. So they have the farmers will have a market not only to the areas where they're producing, but they can sell their produce to those regions of the countries which are deficient. Let's say Bengal is deficient in, or let's say South India is deficient in production of wheat, whereas in some part of the country which are deficient in let's say rice. So exchange can be done in a better way, or better price recovery, a better price discovery can be done of the agriculture produce. That is what expected from this particular act. Now the second act was the farmers empowerment and protection, empowerment and protection agreement of price assurance and farm services act 2020. So it was basically providing a framework for contract farming. Now what is contract farming? Contract farming is a contract between the farmers and let's say enterprise. Okay, so farmer, there is a contract between farmer and enterprise. Now enterprise has a what? Enterprise, let's say ITC or any enterprise, any big enterprises, they have what? They have a capital, whereas farmers don't have capital. So the farmers could have access to capital, okay, access to technology, access to modern equipment, modern technology, modern seeds, and so on. At the same time, enterprise could have also benefited in this process by way of getting assured supply. Okay, so the availability of raw materials could have been assured. So assured raw material supply can be done through contract farming. So this is a contract between the farmer and the enterprise, where the enterprise agreed to buy the commodities from the farmers uh, uh, at a price which is fixed before the production. All right. So in a way, the farmers also get benefited by way of assured return. So there is a guarantee, or there is an assured return. So in a way, it will also affect the farmer's production, because if the price is fixed, in that circumstances, what will happen, that your production will also go up. So it also gets the assurance regarding the price, and therefore it was expected that with the contract farming, they can also their income can also increase. And at the same time, it will also bridge the gap between the mismatch of raw materials to the enterprises. So in a way, it was backward forward linkages in agriculture sector could have been strengthened through the way of contract farming. All right. So it is this farmers empowerment and protection agreement assurance uh, of Price Assurance and Farm Service Act aims to provide a framework for contract farming. All right. It seeks to protect the and empower the farmer. It's not, of course, there was some sort of accusation that the contract farming is largely in favor of the enterprises to reduce that element that the contract farming is tilted towards the enterprises. There were a lot of provisions made in under the act where the rights of the farmers are also protected. Okay, so the farmers can take up you know they can take up the issues, and there is adequate dispute resolution mechanism that was provided under the article where uh, the the issues will the issues was expected to redress in a time bound manner. So there was a provision regarding the dispute resolution mechanism if any case arises between the farmer and enterprises, and if they are not able to bring the contract into effect, right? So in a way, it could have been benefited greatly to the farmers, and they could have able to earn more money in that with this act in implementation. There was third act, and this third act was the Essential Commodities Amendment Act. Okay, so what is Essential Commodities Act now saying? The Essential Commodities Act, it has fixed that one can sell, there is a quota fixed for every product that can be sold in outside the market or in the market. Okay, so it seeks to remove those quotas, okay, with respect to the commodities like cereals, pulses, oil seeds, edible oils, onion, potatoes from the list of essential commodities. Right now the quota is fixed. As a result, what happens, no, beyond that quota one cannot sell it to the international market. All right, now once the quota is not fixed, once it is, these commodities are removed from the Essential Commodities Act, in that circumstances they are able to sell it in the market, and therefore they're able to fetch more price for their commodities. This was aimed to remove the fears of private investors, especially because the Essential Commodities Act is essentially a regulatory mechanism or regulatory interference in the market. Okay, market works on the principle of demand and supply. Supply happens on if there is a demand in the market. So therefore, what the Essential Commodities do, it is trying to restrict the supply and therefore making interference in the market, and that is what the act essentially tries to remove. So in a way, it tries to provide freedom. In all these three acts, it was were trying to provide freedom to produce agriculture produce. It hold, freedom to move, distribute, and supply. Okay, which could lead to harnessing of economics of scale, and at the same time, it could lead to attractive private investment, or whether it is foreign direct investment or domestic investment in agriculture sector specifically. And as a result, the agriculture sector could have been benefited because of large scale capital availability in this particular sector, technological availability, and modern tools and seeds. All right, but yes, you are absolutely raising the concern. Now there are a lot of issues. Now why there were a lot of protests? These are all these were all these were all the good content. As I said, the content in these laws are good, but the problem is that the intent. Now if you look at the features that I discussed, and if you have attended the my classroom program, I have discussed one specific thing, that India is moving towards a capitalist economy. when you look at the theoretical part, it seems good. There's no problem with the content, as I said. Okay, but the problem is when it comes into implementation, what happens that the benefit is earned by the mediator. Okay, benefit is earned by not by the farmers. It is what happens in the principle that I said, that once the choices will have come, in that circumstances the beneficiary will be the farmer. But what happens if there are more choices to the people? Okay, even though there are more choices, then what will happen, there will not be more choices. Okay, what happens, the fear among the among the farmers is that once these private players come into play or come for procurement, what will happen, the APMC mandis will automatically die. And this is what they feared. And of course there are a lot of fears. Well, I'll talk about regarding MSP, regarding various other issues. So why these protests were there? Now let us discuss about, let me discuss about the benefits. Once we discuss about the benefits, we'll come to discuss about the reasons why the protest, there were a lot of protest. Okay, and largely it is included, it is because of the intent of the government, not the content of the laws, largely because of the intent. Okay, there are few of also of course because of the content, but then largely because of the intent. Okay, now let me discuss about, yes. Yes, absolutely. Weber has rightly pointed out. If you look at today, you look at the example of onion. What happens with the onion today? Who gets the benefit when the prices of onion, get increased? The price of onion gets increased when when the farmers are going for production. Okay, but once they produce, once they harvest the produce, the price of onion gets down. Okay, by January you will see the price of onion gets down. But when it when there is a sowing season, let's say the sowing season starts, of sowing of onion starts from, let's say, October. So the prices of onions gets increased during October, November, December, and mid January. And once the production happens, okay, the large number of farmers, once they produce, okay, they don't get the return. It is the intermediate, it is the mediator, it is the businessman who gets the benefit, not the farmers. And this is the reason for disenchantment. Okay, now I'll discuss this one, but let me go and first discuss the benefits I was discussing. So as I said, it removes barrier, and there will be a large market available to the farmers. They can sell it to anywhere. There will be seamless electronic trading. Now this is again electronic trading. How many farmers know about the electronic trading? That is also a question. If you look at, there was one report in the Hindu where that particular journalist go to the market and he asks from the people regarding the enam, and people were not aware about the enam. So the farmers were not aware, and farmers were saying it is some sort of reward that government of India is going to provide. So you can understand that the communication is not reaching to the people, even though the government are making a lot of effort. But and government are bringing laws, bringing new things, new schemes, but the things are not reaching to the people, to the farmers. That is the problem. So even though there is a seamless electronic trading, and that has come into operation in 2016, but yet you don't see that people are aware about these kind of these kind of things which are present. So it will of course ending monopoly. Okay, it increases competition among the consumers, the farmers get better return. Once the competition happens, the farmers will be able to fetch better price for this. There will be free movement of agriculture products, and therefore it creates a unified national market. All right. So that is how the in the process the consumer also get the benefit. All right. Now the second is farmers empowerment. Of course, it empowers the farmers. Okay, as they can enter into an agreement with anyone. They can sell it to anyone, whether it is about the retailers, exporters, or anyone. They can enter into an agreement with anyone. So they have a large pool of buyers. Okay, once you have a large pool of buyers, they will be competing, or they will be buying. The buyers will be buying to buy the goods from the farmers. In that circumstances, the value of the seller will get increased, and therefore the farmers will fetch more prices from the buyers. Okay, that is what you can see. They'll get high quality seeds, pesticide, fertilizer, tools, technology, and so on. As a result, the private investment will also increase in the market. And one of the major benefit of this, that that now agriculturists will be able to join the global supply chain, especially in the food commodities. So that could have been the benefit. Okay, we have lost this opportunity, but we will have to find out the alternative, and the sooner we find it, the better it would be for agriculture sector in the country. We need to communicate, we need to show right intent to the farmers. Only then the farmers will agree with the benefits, larger benefits of these laws. As I said about the Essential Commodities Act, so no, this will remove the Essential Commodities Act, and it will also help in stabilizing the price. Okay, and therefore the farmer's income also gets increased in the process. So we have discussed about the benefits under the act as well. So why the opposition? So there are mainly six arguments that has been given for the opposition. Once the one is about the existence of APMC mandis. The first thing is about the APMC mandis. The second is about the MSP. Okay, so the assurance, even the government is talking about the act has been named as assurance of agreement of price assurance. Yet the farmers had some sort of issues with regard to the price assurance. Okay, the price fixation, the mechanism for price fixation was also another issue. Food security, method of implementation, the way the government tried to implement the laws, that also created panic, that also created some sort of doubts in the minds of individuals, and as a result the farmers went against this particular bill, and the protest. Of course, this again this was issue of cooperative federalism. So we'll talk about it one by one. So the first thing is about the APMC mandis. Okay, now what happens that no the first thing is that APMC mandis, as I said, the act talks about the alternatives. Okay, it talks about that the choices will be created for farmers. If the farmers has to sell some commodities in the market, so right now we have APMC mandis. Okay, but once the act come into effect, the private players can also buy the commodities directly from the farmers, or the farmers can directly sell it to anyone. All right, so it was trying to give more choices. But how it has been perceived, now the people started believing that once the private individual will come, okay, so they will buy the commodities directly from the farmers, there will be no APMC, and APMC mandis will slowly die. Okay, as you can see, it is happening almost in every sector. Okay, like if you look at the telecom sector, in telecom sector, the this is the status of BSNL. Okay, MTNL and BSNL, they are slowly dying. Similarly, in other sector as well, you will see the government agencies are dying. So similarly, it will happen in the APMC or in agriculture sector as well. In the first few years, of course, the corporate will be willing to buy the commodities from the farmers at a higher price. Okay, but once it happens, okay, the APMC mandis will die. And once the APMC mandis dies, in that circumstances, the people will have no choices to go anywhere. They will have to sell the commodities in sell the commodities only to the private players. Okay, now here you need to understand, even though this message went to the people, okay, the government could have countered it with the argument by giving the example of education sector.
ইকোনমিক্সের একটা নিয়েছিল, কোর্স নিয়েছিল, তার
The voice is coming from somewhere. I would request, please mute your voice. The voice is coming from somewhere. Okay, now what I was saying that, so what will happen in this case, the government could have countered this argument by giving example of education sector. But again, you look at the education sector. Now in education sector, you look at the status of government schools. They are not performing well. Okay, the similar kind of situation might have occurred with the APMC markets, and this is the reason there were large scale protests. Of course, there were there are a lot of intermediaries when the farmers sell produce in agricultural mandis. There are a lot of intermediaries. So once you sell, there are intermediaries. So there are, of course, you can say vested interest of these intermediaries, because the existence of these intermediaries will be questioned. So in that circumstances, there are a lot of resistance come from these intermediaries. Okay, so they also come in. But one important thing that you need to understand, the fear is largely because that once these corporate will dominate, the APMC mandis will slowly die, and there will be no alternative for the farmers but to sell their commodities to the private players only. So in the absence of any government agency, what will happen? The price will be regulated by the market forces. And now here you need to remember, if the price would be decided by the market forces alone, especially in agriculture sector, in that circumstances, the farmers will not be the beneficiaries. Now the MSP or APMC mandis protect the interest of the weaker section. That is, farmer is a weaker section of the society. Okay, now so they will be they are protected through APMC mandis. They are protected by MSPs. Now what happens? Just compare it with education system. What happens if government would have completely destroyed the or completely shut the government schools? What would be the situation in that circumstance? Poor will not be able to afford the education. Okay, the private school will increase the charges, and therefore poor will not be able to afford the education, and they will remain poor. All right, similarly here you can see, once there is no existence of mandis and the government mandis or APMC mandis, in that circumstance farmers will have no choice but to sell it to the private players. And you cannot uh, you cannot escape with one uh, special provision, with one view, that in the market there are always collusion. So what I said, in theory, these laws look very good, but when it comes to the practice in the market, there are a lot of collusion happens in a capitalist system. There are a lot of collusion happen in the industry by the industry leaders. So therefore, this is one of the fear that was there. Second fear is about the MSP. Now, it is directly related to the first cause, MSP. Now, what is happening that the farmers were having a fear that MSP, once these laws will come into operation, in that circumstances the government will slowly reduce its MSP, or it will done away with MSP. Okay. Now, what is happening? MSP, minimum support. MSP is what? Minimum support price. It is minimum support price. Now, how MSP serves the farm? You know, once MSP, when the MSP, the concept of MSP, or you can say the procurement price, now both has become one. This is the reason. This is the major problem in agriculture sector. What happens? MSP gives an assurance to the farmer. Let's say production goes up. Okay. Now, once the production goes up, in the market works. If you look at the principles of demand and supply, if supply goes up, in that circumstances the price will go down. Okay, there is an inverse relationship. So, if the farmers are producing more, the price will go down. Now, what MSP serves? MSP says, look, there is an assurance that if you produce more, so your price will not go down beyond a certain beyond a certain limit. So it is an assurance given to the farmers that if you produce more, your price will not come down beyond this level. All right. So it is an assurance given to the farmers. So therefore, they continuously produce goods and services. If the MSP is, if MSP is not in the system, in that circumstance, if they produce more, what will happen? The market will work on the basis of what? The market will work on the basis of demand and supply, and the price may go down in such circumstances. In that circumstance, the farmers will not be able to earn benefit. You have seen the similar kind of situation when the tomatoes produced by farmers have been uh, destroyed, have been have been destroyed on the roads. So the MSP can protect the interest of the farmers. So therefore, they were having a view that if the laws come into practice, in that circumstances, the government will not announce MSP. Rather, government will leave the market to decide the rate of the commodities. And as you can see, the market, the buyer will be, or the enterprise or the companies will be able to decide the price at a lower cost. As you might have heard the news in many cases, that the prices of the commodities are the procurement price of various commodities are very low by the various industries. Okay, so that was something that was problematic. Now, this is against the cooperative federalism. Largely, the various states had objected the laws, largely because the agriculture and agriculture marketing is a state subject. Okay, so therefore, the government, if the government is making legislation, it is an encroachment of the function of the states. So therefore, it is against the cooperative federalism. Okay, so that is the third argument. Now, there was no mechanism for price fixation, as you see. So Price Assurance Act does not prescribe, okay, mechanism for the price fixation, how the price will be fixed when there is a contract farming happens, the how and what will be the mechanism of the price fixation, that has been not defined by the act. Okay, so there is apprehension among the farmers that it will give free hand to the private corporate household, and therefore the farmers, there will be large scale exploitation of the farmers. And again, Once it is challenged, of course there is a redressal mechanism provided under the act, but you need to remember the contract farming is not a contract between two equal parties. It is a contract between two unequal parties. Why? Because there is one on the one side there are industrialists who are of course having a lot of power when it comes to money and legal luminaries and so on. They have access to that power center. Once it is challenged in the court, now they have you know uh, these enterprises have uh, better lawyers. They have access to lawyers, they have money, they will be able to and on the other hand the farmers don't have enough money, and therefore they cannot hire the good lawyers, and therefore they will have to face the consequences. Okay, so the farmers cannot win uh, any case in the court of law. So that's why it is not a contract between two equal parties, it is a contract between two unequal parties. So therefore it will lead to, as the farmers were saying, this will lead to their exploitation, because in the absence of uh, statutory in the absence of a statutory organization or statutory authority, the prices will not be fixed, and most of the times they will have to face exploitation. Okay, they were also apprehensive about the formal contractual obligation, whereas the the unorganized nature of the farm sector. All right. Now there are formal contractual obligation, but since the sector is highly unorganized, since the people are not well aware, the farmers are not well aware about the legal entangles, they are not aware about the contractual issues and so on. So therefore they had a view that they will not be able to compete with the private corporate entities. There is also about problems with respect to the food security. Okay, now the questions were raised by the various experts that once the essential commodities such as potato, onion and others are removed from the Essential Commodities Act, in that circumstances there will be free hand in the a free hand will be provided, let's say, to the exporter. Now exporters, if they are fetching more price in international market, they will sell item to international market, and therefore as a result what will happen, there will be shortage of the commodities in India. And this kind of situation we have already faced when it comes to the onion, when it comes to the wheat in 2012 as well. So such situation may occur, and as a result of this there will be a food security challenge in the country itself. And also this may fuel higher prices to the consumers, and the consumers will again be the one who will have to pay higher prices for the commodities on against, and who will be the beneficiaries? It is the exporters who will be the beneficiaries, not the farmers. All right, this is again, and of course there was a lot of apprehension the way the act was trying to be implemented, and a lot of haste and haste decisions were taken. A lot of discussions were not taken place. As you can see, it has rightly been pointed out that any legislation, let's say any legislation, if it is passed by the parliament, you know, we the things are, or the draft of the laws are always put for the public scrutiny. But when it comes to these farm laws, these have not been put in public scrutiny, and the decisions were taken in haste. Okay, now in fact the demand for scrutiny of the bills by a parliamentary panels was also dismissed, and the government rushed to the passage of legislation that also enhanced that also created a panic among the farmers, and that's why they went against the against the bill. These are the major reasons why the farmers were against the bill, and why there are a lot of criticism of the bill. Despite having uh, good content, it is something where the government could not communicate well to the people. Now, in terms of opportunity, as I said, even though the good the act were good in content, the government the problem was about the intent. The government could not communicate well, and as a result, it is a huge loss of opportunity in agriculture sector specifically, and in more general to the economy. Okay, it's a huge loss of opportunity. In agriculture sector, we could have seen the elimination of cartelization and also elimination of intermediaries or middlemen. Largely, if you look at today, the producer are not able to get benefit. Agriculture producer are not able to get benefit, largely because of the cartelization in APMC mandis. In APMC mandis, there are few who makes who establish their cartel, and as a result, they are able to establish cartel, and farmers are not able to fetch the price. Once the farmers go to the APMC mandis, there are artiyas. You must have heard about the artiyas. These artiyas are the middleman. Okay, they they take the benefits, and therefore the benefits are reaching to these middlemen, not to the farmers. Okay, so these middlemen issue could not be resolved. There is also issue about the product quality. Why? Because if the contract farming comes into play, and uh, the contract farming is there, then the product quality could have been enhanced, the farmers earning could have been enhanced, technological intervention in agriculture could have been enhanced. Okay, so these are all opportunity that we have lost. And we have also lost the distress. We are also facing the situation of distress sale, and that is happening in agriculture sector. Now, look at the perishable items. These perishable items are sold by the farmers largely because there is a lack of cold storage facility, largely because there is a lack of available buyers, and that's why they are selling. Let's say there are a lot of farmers who are selling the tomato, and it is the reality that you can see in Indian agriculture, that the farmers are forced to sell the commodities at a 1 rupees at some point of time. Okay, so such distress sale could have been avoided if you see the investment from the private sector, whether it comes to the contract farming, whether it comes to the procurement of cold value chain. Okay, so this by establishing these cold value chain, the distress cell problem could have been resolved in agriculture sector. But again, because the farm laws have, are going to be repealed, in that circumstances, of course, the investors will you will see the investors will not come immediately, and of course we'll have to make effort to bring them on the table. Strengthening the output side is also, and again there are a lot of structural issues in agriculture sector, whether it is about the lack of technological application, whether it is about the marketing infrastructure, whether it is about the storage, and so these structural rigidities could have been resolved if there is a private investment in the agriculture sector. The private investment and the capital investment is not happening in agriculture sector, and therefore the output cost is rising. And once the output cost increases, the efficiency of the production also goes down in this process. So that is something we will lose. We will not be able to see so similar kind of investment in agriculture sector. All right. So It's a loss of opportunity. It's a huge loss of opportunities in agriculture sector. Now what we need to do, the government needs to, now the next time the government needs to, you know, implement it in a better way. Why? Because more important, it is to communicate and educate to the people. Okay, so whatever the idea looks good, but if it is implemented with the true implementation, with true spirit, it can surely be the beneficial for the agriculture sector. Okay, but that is not that is required to be communicated, and appropriate institutional arrangement will have to be done. So protection of the weaker section, okay, so that must be done in a fair and transparent manner. Only then you can see that the agriculture sector will get benefited in the larger process. So as of now, if I say these are the repealing of the laws is surely a loss of opportunity in agriculture sector, but it's a great lesson for the government also, that any legislation, and the legislation which could have have a widespread impact, should not be passed without due discussion done by the people. All right, look at the GST. Now GST was widely discussed by the people, okay, widely discussed by the experts. So therefore, once it is implemented, there you cannot, you don't see large scale protest against the GST. Okay, because it took longer time. These were the issues that come into discussion, and people understood that it was well communicated to the people. But when it comes to the three laws in agriculture sector, it was not uh, it was not widely communicated among the people, and this is the reason why there is a lot of fear against these laws. All right, so this is what we have discussed about the farm laws, and this is important issues. This is one of the important issues. Of course, you can expect some sort of question. The laws might be repealed, and but the question remains, and the problem of the agriculture sector is still persistent. Okay, so you can surely expect question from this part as well. Okay, any part of the discussion, if you are not able to understand, now you can please raise, because this is a very important topic. If you have not understood any part uh, uh, of the discussion, you can please raise your question. Or if you want to raise a few other question, you can raise. Elimination of cartel. Cartel means there are a lot of there are few traders. Okay, so there are few traders who actually makes a cartel. Cartel means an organized, an informal organization, where the collusion, they colluded. Okay, the few buyers, they colluded, and they create a single cartel, and as a result, what happens, the farmers are not able to fetch higher price. Let's say, just let me take an example. I have I've seen that particular incident in, let's say, carpet industry. Okay, now what happens in the carpet industry, the weavers are not they don't get benefit. Why? Because if they made items on their own, no buyers, or no industry, or no buyers will buy that particular carpet from the weavers. Okay, and if somebody is and the buyers will, the company will buy the carpet, which for only those carpet, for the material which is provided by the company. They won't buy any other uh, carpet which is independently made by the weaver. Now what happens, and every company has their own specific let's say design. Okay, so they will buy only those kind of items. So this is again a collusion, that they will not buy some items which is independently done by the weavers. So the weavers are not get benefited in this process. Similarly, in the agriculture sector, you will see what say the price of, let's say, rice or paddy will not increase. They come, they have colluded informally that the price of the particular commodity will not go beyond a certain. So this is what happens in terms of cartelization. So once the cartelization happens, the prices are informally fixed by these particular group, and therefore the other group do not get the benefit of this. So it's like monopoly, which is created by collusion. Yes, APMC mandis are under state government. It is created by the state government. There are a lot of participants in APMC mandis. There are the participation given, but then the responsibility of running the APMC mandis is on the government. It is created by the selling of crops to government happening. Yes, absolutely. The government buys by MSP. Okay, the government buys the crops on MSP in APMC mandis, Agriculture Produce Marketing Committee. Yes, yes. Contract farming. Okay. Okay, let me explain Chanchal's question, and then I'll explain to others. So contract farming is a contract. Contract between whom? There is a contract. Okay, contract between farmer and an industry. Let's say here, I will take the name of one industry. Let's say ITC. Okay, ITC is a company. Okay, which buys the agricultural commodities because it has a lot of agricultural items. Let's say the ITC is producing ketchup. Okay, so ITC is producing, let's say, ketchup. So therefore ITC requires what? The raw material. Okay, and it requires tomato. Let's say ITC goes to the market. There is uncertainty in the market. All right, because whether it will get the product or not, whether everyone is producing tomato or not, there is uncertainty regarding the availability of raw materials. Now what happens under the contract farming, that there will be a contract between the farmers and ITC, that ITC will tell the farmers that, look, you produce tomato, I will buy this tomato at a particular price, let's say at 40 rupees. So before sowing, I am making a contract with the farmers that I will be buying your commodities, whatever the commodities you will produce, I will be buying the commodities at a particular price, let's say 40 rupees. And for that, there are many models, but then ITC says, look, I will provide you all the essential ingredients to produce the things. Okay, it is your field. You decide. Okay, what it is your field. The field remains with you, but you produce what I tell you to produce. So I have told you to produce please produce the tomato. I will buy the tomato, whatever you produce, at a particular price, let's say 40 rupees, whatever price is there. Now, let's say what is happening in this case. All the things are provided by the ITC. Capital is also provided by ITC. Okay. Now, what happens? The farmers. So this is a contract farming. You understood the contract farming? It is a contract between farmers and the enterprises regarding the production of goods and the price at which the particular company will buy the goods. Okay, so inputs will be provided by ITC to the farmer. The farmers are responsible for producing the goods. Now once the farmer produces the goods, okay, it will sell only to ITC because there is a contract between the farmers and ITC. And whatever the contract, let's say it is saying I'll 60% of the produce you have to sell it to me. So whatever the kind of arrangement, so the farmers will have to sell it to the ITC. Okay, so both will get benefited in this process. The farmers get what? It gets assured price. First, it gets assured price. It gets assurance that the particular amount of things will be taken by the ITC. So it will produce more. Its income goes up. Okay. Or at the same time, there is the availability of the capital, availability of other inputs. All the things are there. So they will be producing. The other benefit is that the ITC will come to their place to buy the goods. So therefore, the cost of procurement, the cost of let's say cost of bringing goods from one place to other place, that has also been saved. The cost of let's say keeping in cold storage, that has also been saved. He's not worried about the wastage of the item at all. So in a way, it is able to, it is able to fetch more price. At the same time, it will be beneficial for ITC. Why? Because once the ITC buys at mandis and other places, there are middlemen. So in this process, what happened? The cost of input gets increased. So what will happen if the ITC is directly in contact with the farmers? It will be able to sell at a lesser price. So the price will be reduced for ITC. If the price will reduce for ITC, the consumer will also get benefited in the process. Second, the IC will get the raw materials. Okay, there is an assurance to the ITC regarding the availability of raw materials. So raw materials will also get available. The farmers have become the part of the supply chain. Otherwise, what happens? The farmers are producing, but they are it is the mediators who get the benefit. So here the farmers will get the benefit, ITC will get benefit in the process, and the economy will get benefited because the agriculture sector will get benefit, industry will get essential items. There is a backward and forward linkages of agriculture sector. You got the point, Chanchal? Okay. Now, next question is Pavitra Varti. Then how come brokers are coming in between farmers and government? Okay, so what happens if you go to the mandis? Okay, if you go to the mandis, what happens? Now, you are, if you go to the mandis, there are mediators. Okay, and then you sell it to you sell with the help of these mediators to the government or to the traders, whoever are, to the government, to the traders. All right, so here what happens, these mediators are there. Okay, they will take some price. Okay, so these mediators are there, and therefore they are able to they charge from the farmers for various kinds of services they provide to the farmers, for selling services, for protection of, because if they are not able to sell it on the same day, in that case the protection of their commodities there. So for various purposes, the brokers comes, they play vital role here. All right. APMC includes government. In APMC, there are participation given to APMC, Agriculture Produce Marketing Committee. In Agriculture Produce Marketing Committee, there are a lot of participants. Okay, this APMC is responsible for running the mandis, and in this mandi, the participation is given to everyone: the brokers, the farmers, and the traders. But who are in power? It is the traders who are in the power in APMC mandis. So therefore, they have a more power, and they are able to operate, and they are able to establish their monopoly. Both. Any question? Any other question? IPC acts are fixed. I'm not able to understand your question, Rangoli. IPC acts are fixed. The acts are made by the parliament. Okay, because rules are made by the parliament, laws are made by the parliament, and parliament can amend that laws also. They are okay. They are listed. You're asking about under what they are listed. They're listed under.
Hello.
Yes, yes, please.
Yeah, sir. Actually, IPC are having certain sections and certain things, na. So the only amendments can be made in it, and the acts like this POCSO acts and the Farmer Act, under what they are listed,
Mhm.
or means what is the relation of these acts with IPC?
IPC, see, these are act, any laws. Okay, these are laws. Act and laws are made by the parliament. Once it is made, the amendment can also be done by the parliament. Okay, so this can be done. Once these are passed by the parliament, what happens? So if any laws, if there is a need to amend, let's say there is a need to amend the IPC laws. So for that, the because Ministry of Home Affairs is responsible for IPC. Okay, so it will introduce the bill in either in Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, and it has to be passed depending on the nature of the laws. If it requires let's say IPC, so it's a central, so in that case it must be passed by both Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, and then it goes to the president. Okay, president ratifies it, a president signs it, and once the president signs, then it becomes the act. Okay, once it comes into the gazette, okay, there will be uh, 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 it is listed in the gazette, and then it comes into the practice. This is how it is done. Okay, so if any amendment is required, it has to be passed in the parliament, and then it has to be signed by the approved by the president, and then it comes into the operation. All right, so these are the question. Okay, any other question? You understood, Rangoli? Any other question with respect to this particular law? So you have understood the farm laws. I believe you have understood the farm laws. You can expect, of course, the benefits. You know, question could have been asked about the benefits of the farm laws. Okay, but now since it has been repealed, so the question could be asked about the loss of opportunity, not the benefit, but loss of opportunity. What opportunity we have lost in some way or other? It will be tweaked in a different way. It might be asked in a different way, but the question, the main crux of the question now will be on the lost opportunities. What are the opportunities that we have lost in the process? All right, so this is what we have seen. Now we'll move on to the next discussion. If you don't have any question, now we'll move on to the next discussion. But before going into entering into the next discussion, let's take a small break of 10 minutes. Now it is 7:42. We'll meet at 7:52. All right, so let's take a 10 minutes break, and then we'll discuss on other issues as well. Is it okay to everyone? Welcome back to everyone. Now, let us discuss about few other topic. The one topic is decarbonization of Indian economy. Okay, so let us discuss about the decarbonization of Indian economy. So, decarbonization of Indian economy. That is the issue that we will discuss. Now, this you all are there. If you are there, please say yes. Then I'll start. Okay. All right. So, India has announced that it will achieve net zero emission. Okay. As I said, I will keep on discussing some of the issues related to the Glasgow agreement. All right. And climate change um, uh, conference. So the issues is that the issue is that India has announced net zero emission. The Prime Minister has announced net zero emission by 2070. This is the ambitious target that has been set by the Prime Minister. In order to do so, the India will have to focus a lot on decarbonizing its economy. So in this article, it has been discussed about the process, how India can go for decarbonizing its economy. What are the challenges that it will face in this process, especially from the industry? What kind of challenges it will face from the industry? That is what mentioned in this article. So we'll try to discuss, because the question can be asked about that India has, let's say, Prime Minister has promised. You can write down the questions. The Prime Minister has promised net zero emission by 2070 in the Glasgow conference. However, in order to achieve net zero emission by 2070s, there are a lot of challenges uh, in this process. Critically discuss. The question can be asked like this. So in this, we need to understand that what are the challenges that India will face in the process of decarbonization its economy. Okay, because India is a developing economy. There are a lot of cost involved in the process of decarbonization. Okay, it is not easy to phase out with the with the coal or traditional uses of the traditional uses of uh, energy production and so on. So India will require some sort of specific strategies to go for this in 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 the next 50 years, because now we are in 2021. So it has been said we still have 49 years to go for decarbonization. So for the long period of time, we'll have to adopt a long term strategies to go for net zero emission. So let us try to understand. So what is decarbonization? Decarbonization is the process of reducing the amount of carbon, specifically CO2, in the atmosphere. So the process of reducing the amount of carbon that is sent to the atmosphere, and specifically the carbon dioxide. So basically, if you look at, so India will require to transit, and especially the Indian industry will require to transit from the traditional method of producing the goods to non-traditional method or renewable source of energy. Okay, so decarbonization is the process of reducing the carbon. Okay, reducing the amount of carbon that is sent to the atmosphere. So what is expected that by 2070 we will not be discharging CO2 in the atmosphere. This is what the decarbonization means. And this will create the industrial decarbonization, or decarbonization will propel India towards a sustainable future. And uh, it will help in addressing the issue of climate change in the world as well as in the country. So, however, in the process of decarbonization, we will have a loss, and we will have to pay the cost of it. And the cost of it is that the first uh, is on the people who are working, especially the jobs which are engaged in the energy production or fossil fuels production. So, for example, people who are dependent on coal, people who are producing coals, they will have to shift. So, people working in the fossil fuels and energy production will have to bear the consequence of it. Heavy industry and the vehicle manufacturing sector are also expected to uh, uh, to to uh, to to bear the consequence of this. If you look at the sectoral impact, especially the sectors such as steel, which uses huge coal uh, in order to produce steel, petrochemicals, aluminum, cement, fertilizer sectors. These are the sectors which will greatly affected by the process of decarbonization of the economy, and these are all heavy industries. And heavy industries do not get transferred, or do not get transit in one day or 2 day. Okay, because these are heavy industries, and transition of these industries and adopting the latest technology will take some time. So therefore, these industries will have to shift, and the government and the country will have to pay huge price in order to shift. On the other hand, if we shift to other, look at, if they are shifting. The first of all, there is a cost of shifting. Second, the cost of new technology. So as a result, what will happen? The cost of the input, or input cost of these industries will increase, and therefore they will not be able to compete with the global companies. And as a result, the competitiveness of the country will hamper. In the process, they will lose the significant market, whether it is in US or any other country. There will be loss of significant market to these companies. So therefore, this is another challenge that you can see in with Indian companies. Another problem with heavy industries is that they need to, if they need high temperature heat. For example, steel industry, they need huge temperature in order to convert the raw materials into steel, or for furnace and any other purposes. They need high temperature heat. Okay, and these high temperature heat can only be provided by burning the fossil fuels, because the renewable energy will not be able to produce that much of heat as of now. So therefore, there is a cost. So therefore, it will not be easy for these companies to go for the transition. Okay, so therefore there are the cost. So what the article talks about, that there are challenges, and in the industrial decarbonization will take some time. So therefore, what we need to do, we need to adopt a long-term strategy, and we need to break these long-term strategy in the short-term strategies, where we can find out that the transition happens in a way which help these industry to get accommodated with the system. Otherwise, it will have a huge cost, and it will have a huge cost on economy as well. So what should be the process? So that is what it has been said. So that is again the industrial decarbonization challenges that has been highlighted. One is industrial process need high temperature, CO2 emission, from feedstock requires process level changes. Okay, similarly, these are complicated. Industrial processes are highly integrated. Making changes can be very complicated. Existing facilities will require costly rebuilds and retrofits. Okay, so therefore, it is not easy to get uh, to transit from or go for the transition of decarbonization of economy. So what are the ways through which we can go? So breaking up into shorter periods. The first thing, the strategic intervention that can be made is breaking up into shorter periods. So now we have gone for a long-term objective that has been defined. We have to go for 2070. So you can see by 2017 there will be many changes, especially the kind of changes that is happening in the renewable energy. There will be a lot of changes in technology. Okay, so we need to break these long-term objectives into short-term strategies and fixed, reasonable targets for short-term and medium-term and the long-term period. For example, in UK, there has been target for next 5 years. So as you can see, the 5-year plans. Okay, we visualized under the 5-year plans that what kind of achievement will be done. So similar kind of things we can visualize in 5-year terms, that in the next 5 years what kind of changes and what kind of decarbonization that can be done. All right, so that will be something which will be feasible. That is something which can be achieved, and that will be a coordinated response from the government and from the public to achieve a particular target. There is also need to have institutional agencies to set up the target. Okay, so it said there is a need to set up an autonomous agency, as you can see in other countries. Okay, so these autonomous agency will decide the long-term, short-term, and medium-term strategy to decarbonize the economy. So this economy will can be created at par with the climate change committee that has been established in UK. So that kind of technically credible agency must be established in order to go for a long period, go for a long-term target of net zero emission in the country. The technical committee, of course, should comprise not only the environmentalist but also the economist, because they can understand better the impact of that environmental change on the economy. So that kind of independent agency must be created in order to give effect to the commitment that have been made by the Prime Minister. There is a need to set the target for the power sector. What kind of target you can see? So there is a need to set permissible emission intensity in terms of grams of carbon dioxide equivalent per kilowatt of electricity. So that could be one thing. Okay, for the agreement has happened with respect to the purchase of the carbon credit. So the similar kind of target must be set for the power sector as well. And last but not the least, there's a need to have a coordinated response, and there is a need to have a coordinated approach. Right now, of course, we have let's say we have made the strategy, we have made the announcement, but we need to think about the long term. We need to have broader approach. We need to have a coordinated approach to deal with the issues. Now we are dealing with the fragmented issues, the fragmented response against the climate change. Need to have a coordinated approach. That is what this article is emphasizing on. So whether it is about the separate targets for specific resources such as solar, non-solar renewable energy, hydropower, Okay, so these specific target must be set, and that has been in the process. Similarly, this will give more more flexibility to the distribution companies to meet their targets. So therefore, what we need to do, we need to have a coordinated response and coordinated approach towards decarbonization of the economy, and for that we need to have a technical committees which can have sound understanding about the economy as well as the environmental challenges, right? Only then we can make a coordinated response on the climate change and can get the benefit in the process. So as I said, clear roadmap with the sector specific targets, expanding the decarbonization umbrella, that is the target must be set up for micro, small and medium enterprises as well. Okay, there must be technology transfer, and promoting circular economy are the specific specific approach that we must adopt. Circular economy, where one, the uses of the byproduct of a product is used in another purpose. For example, if we are using the bottles, okay, so the bottles can be reutilized in other way, another commodities can be created. So using the used materials and then finding its uses in others, so that is a circular economy. So we should focus on recycling. Okay, so that must be our focus in order to ensure that decarbonization happens in the economy. Similarly, technology transfer needs to be done from the developed country to developing countries, at this from European countries to other countries, so that the developing countries also get benefited in the process. And at the same time, technology transfer must be done to the micro, small and medium enterprises in India, and the technology must be provided to them at a lesser cost. They must be encouraged to adopt these power saving technology or these technologies. So there must be concession provided by the government for that, for adopting those technologies. All right, so this must be the approach of the government in order to deal with the or in order to achieve the net zero emission by 2070. So this is what we have understood. So we have understood the challenges of the decarbonization of the economy, and at the same time how it can be addressed, what should be the approach of the decarbonization of the economy, that we have discussed in this article. And this is a very prominent topic. Why? Because Prime Minister has already announced to 2070, by 2070 we will have a net zero emission. So this is an important announcement. This is not a general thing, especially in, you can expect this kind of question in environment. All right, so you can surely expect that kind of, because it is an important topic to and of course one of the probable topic to be asked in the mains examination. So this is what we have discussed about the decarbonization of economy. Of course, we can also discuss some of the issues that we need to focus more on. More specifically, if you want to go, we need to focus on renewable energy. In renewable energy, solar power projects, solar power, solar manufacturing must be promoted. Solar panels manufacturing must be promoted, as the government of India has provided PLI scheme and so on, in order to manufacture the solar panels in the country. Similarly, similar concession must be provided in manufacturing of other items in hydropower, electricity, and for other renewable energy resources in the country. Phasing out of the there must be a clear strategy for phasing out of the coal, but immediately it would be difficult for the country, but in the long term we must also think about it. Okay, so ultimately it is the technology that we need to develop. It is the technology that is needed to be transferred to the developing countries. Only then the transition can be done, transition can happen. All right, so this is about the decarbonization economy. Now, so the similar kind of article I will discuss, because we do have a paucity of time. So what we will do, we will discuss another article, and that is related to the Glasgow Agreement. And that is closely related to this article, and that is Glasgow Climate Pact. Okay, so as I said, that we will keep following the events and the things and the development that happens in the Glasgow Climate Pact, because again, environment is one of the important topic, and you can always expect questions from the current affairs. So the Glasgow Climate Pact is of course an important. What are the achievements, what are the disappointment that we faced? Of course we need to discuss about it. All right, now if you look at the Glasgow Climate Pact, you will see there are of course some achievement, at least in theory, but what happens at the ground level, that we need to still see. So the Glasgow Climate Pact was adopted recently, and there is a mixed feeling about the achievement of the Glasgow Agreement, and what are the achievement that we have in the summit that we will discuss. We will also discuss about that the areas we face disappointment. So we'll talk about these things. Now let us discuss it one by one. So the first thing is about the awareness about the average global temperature. So when it comes to the global temperature, okay, so there is a clear consensus on a target of keeping global temperature rise down to 1.5 degrees Celsius. So there is a consensus among the countries to reduce it or bring it down to 1.5 degrees Celsius. That is there. Okay, so the first important thing is to keep it under 1.5 degrees Celsius, where you see every countries were agreed on this. There was also transition from fossil fuels. There was clear recognition on the need to transit from fossil fuels by phasing down the use of coal. Okay, so countries have agreed to reduce the coal, and there was an agreement with respect to less uses of the coal. All right, they have also recognized the importance of adaptation, and for the adaptation of the climate, the countries required money, and therefore the countries, the developed countries, agreed to provide provide more finance and double the finance that they use. They agreed to provide uh, double double amount of the finance in order to adapt the climate change technologies in developing countries. Okay, so the adaptation plan was decided in Paris climate, and the developed countries decided to you know decide to provide more finance, double the finance that they provide. However, it is not the commitment. The commitment is about $100 billion every year, but they are now providing only $30 billion every year. So they have made commitment to provide $30 billion. Okay, so they have not reached to the commitment level, but at least they have doubled the amount what they were doing. So that is one of the important achievement that we can say of the summit. Of course, there is one global methane place. Okay, almost 100 countries signed the agreement to reduce the methane. However, India did not participate in that global methane place due to the fact that India is one of the country which produces rice, and rice, in rice production, there is a discharge of methane. So therefore, India was not party to the global methane place. However, more than 100 countries agreed and signed to cut methane emission by 30% by the year 2030. So that is again a significant development when you see the climate change, because methane is among the uh, gas which can which create climate change, and which are responsible for uh, higher temperature. All right, so that is again a significant development. Regarding the deforestation, absolutely good point. Okay, so regarding the deforestation, again, 100 countries signed as agreed to sign to reverse deforestation. And more importantly, the countries like Brazil and Indonesia are part of this summit. Of course, India is again not part of this commitment, but Brazil and Indonesia are party to this agreement, and therefore, uh, of course, it will have a huge positive impact when it comes to the forestation. All right, because Amazon is the biggest forest. Similarly, Indonesia has a huge and the vast forest areas where a lot of illegal logging and uh, you know uh, cutting of trees going on. So if that is reduced, that would be a good development when it comes to improving the climate in the regions. Similarly, there can be a greater cooperation that you can see between US and China. So there is a US China joint declaration on climate change. So that shows that both countries are moving towards less confrontational and more cooperative relationship when it comes to the climate change. So that is one positive development, because China is, of course, when it comes to total carbon emission, China is the biggest emitter when it comes to the total. However, in terms of per capita income, it is of course lower. When it comes to US is among those countries where per capita emission is very high. So therefore, if there is a if there is a better better cooperation between these two countries, that is a positive development with respect to the climate change. So in the future, we can surely expect to have a better and cordial relationship when it comes to the climate change. There is a better clarity when it comes to the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. So Article 6 of the Paris Agreement basically deals with the with the carbon trades. So there is a clarity on how the carbon trades will proceed, and for that there is agreement that there will be a centralized hub that will replace the Kyoto Protocol's clean development mechanism. So the countries have agreed on carbon trades, and for that they have agreed to create a centralized hub which will decide the mechanism and the cost associated with the carbon trading. All right. At the same time, you will see the countries are also coming for their nationally you know nationally determined contribution, and they're also going to talk about the adjusted nationally determined contribution. The commitment had also increased by various countries. For example, India has also increased its commitment with respect to the carbon emissions, and with respect to addressing the issue of climate change. So of course there are some positive developments. So these are the positive development, whether it is recognition of global temperature, transition from fossil fuels. There is at least there is a clear pathway that you can see. All right. And regarding global methane place, ending forestation, and there is a better clarity with respect to the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. However, there are a lot of other issues which you can see as a disappointment, and India has also some reservation in this in this particular summit. So one of these is about phasing out of the coal. Okay, so the phasing out, and India introduced an amendment to the original draft. The original draft talks about the phase out, where India is making uh, a, commitment about the phasing down. So phasing out means slowly and steadily it will replaced by the other source of energy, whereas a phasing down means the cutting down of dependency on the coils on the coals in terms of producing energy. So that is where the difference is in approaches, approaches between the countries, and especially here you will see the differences among the countries as well, because India wanted to include all the fossil fuels in this in the phasing out of. Okay, but then other countries like USA and other countries were were emphasizing on phasing out of the coal, whereas it has not made enough emphasis on phasing out of oil and gas. Okay, largely because of the fact that these are critical for their own economy. So therefore, you see one clear concession among the countries that there is a need to reduce their dependency on the fossil fuels, but then they have differences when it comes to the what should be included in this process, and also the timeline by what it will be achieved. Okay, so that is again the problem. The second problem is again regarding the adaptation fund. So in Paris climate, the adaptation fund was expected $100 billion every year. Okay, that was the commitment that was made by the developed world, whereas the actual contribution will, if you see, that is grossly inadequate to the tune of $30 billion. It was expected during that point of time at $100 billion, but now if you look at the contribution, that is merely $30 billion, which is way behind the estimated cost, which will be increased by the year 2030 to $130 billion to $300 billion. So what is expected that by the year 2030, every year there will be requirement of 130 to $300 billion adaptation fund in order to meet the requirement under the climate change. But if you look at the contribution is grossly inadequate to meet the, or to go for the adaptation. Okay, therefore the countries will not go for that, and there will be shortfall, and there could be shortfall in terms of achievement, okay, or Paris Agreement target. Again, the same thing that as I was talking about, there is a shortfall in Paris Agreement target. Paris Agreement target talks about $100 billion per annum of adaptation fund, but then there is a shortfall of more than half. So therefore, it is highly unlikely that the countries will gear towards the transition, especially those countries which are poor and they are not able to afford the technologies. So the transition of these economies will have a lot of cost. For example, African countries, the transition and least developing countries, they will require huge amount of money in order to do transition. But if the money is not available to them, the transition will be difficult, and as a result, there will be collateral damage for the world as well. There is an issue of compensation for loss and damage. In fact, the countries have rightly pointed out that the loss and damage in the process of the transition, okay, they have a huge loss, but how they will there will be compensation, that is not clearly mentioned, and that is not clearly there is no clear path in order to compensate for the loss and damage of the countries. For example, there are various islands, they will be losing their land, they will be losing their forest as a result of the climate change, and what kind of compensation that will be provided by the world, that is not mentioned. There is a global methane place. Of course, the 100 countries have signed the global methane place, but then India is absent and India is among those countries, okay, among those countries which are which were responsible for methane discharging. So if India is not party to global methane place, the substantial progress cannot be achieved. So therefore, that is one thing that you can see. Similarly, India is, of course, not party to the ending deforestation. In this process, also there will be impact. So only 100 countries have signed. There are many other countries which have not signed the global methane place and also agreement on ending forestation. So that is something you will see disappointment, especially these countries which are major countries, big countries. They are discharging, so they needed to sign the agreement, but it has not happened largely because of their domestic priorities, and this can be seen in the summit. So as a process, if you look at overall, there are some achievement in terms of assessment. If I do so, of course there are some achievement. We have a greater consensus on various issues, but at the same time there are issues that need to be taken, and in the next round of discussion there must be an agreement with respect to whether it is with respect to the phasing out of the coal and inclusion of other fossil fuels, adaptation fund, or compensation for loss and damages, global methane places, and others. Okay, so that is something that is required. So if I look at overall assessment, so it looks, if you look at the summit, of course, it looks ambitious in intent, but then there is very few when it comes to the concrete action, as there are no compliance procedure. All right. So in the absence of compliance procedures, the concrete action you can see very less. Of course, there are few countries which have gone for gone for net zero emission target, but you know but then there are other countries as well. They need to move on to the net zero targets. The significant progress that you can see when it comes to the net zero target, at least 90% of the countries have decided their net zero target by, of course, the period have varied from country to country, but at least now 90% of the countries have decided to go for net zero targets by a particular year. One significant progress in this one can be seen, that enhanced nationally determined contributions are expected by every country. India has already announced enhanced nationally determined contribution, and when it comes to the adaptation and finance of the climate change. So this is what you can see when it comes to the assessment. So this is what was the achievement of the summit, and at the same time there are major disappointments. So if you look at the critical analysis of the Glasgow summit, when it comes to a disappointment and when it comes to achievement, we also need to point out that what are the major areas of disappointment, major areas of concern. We need to go forward, how we can proceed further in the next few years. That is also need to be discussed. All right. So these are the major areas. Okay. In the last uh, few session, we have discussed about a lot of issue with respect to the climate change. So almost all the issues with respect to the climate change which were in the news have been discussed. I believe you might have greatly benefited by the class, especially regarding the issues of environment. All right, and surely some of the question can surely be asked in the mains examination with related to environment. All right. So this is what we discussed. There are few other issues that we could have discussed, but then we discuss more important issues, whether it is a farm laws, which were required to discuss in detail. We discussed about the Glasgow summit as well. So these are the major areas where you can surely expect some questions. So we go into detailed discussion of these issues. All right. So if you have any question with respect to this discussion, please raise your question. I would be happy to take your question now. Any question from your side, or is it clear to everyone? I believe the terms are already mentioned. The terms are already discussed, because we are discussing in last 4 to 5 4 to 5 sessions. We have discussed all the basic things related to this. I believe you have understood every aspect of this. All right. So with this, let us close today's session. Okay. If you have any question, you can always raise your question during the when we start our session. All right. So shall we close our session today? Please say yes if you are agreed, or if you have more question, you can please raise. All right. Okay. Thank you, everyone.